But it's very unfortunate. So no students are joining for the classes. I don't know what is the reason. Because yesterday was not a single student was present. Today I think only one student is present. It's very unfortunate because of you only were conducting the class. Because if you will not join for the class, then there is no meaning of a conducting for class for you. Because if you are enough matured and you will know everything, you can learn everything to study yourself. So there is no meaning of conducting these kind of classes. So either you give the feedback, is there any benefit to you, or is there no benefit to you, or teaching learning is not effective, or our counselors are not effective, or they are below standard, or you are the high standard. Either our counselor don't know anything, or our students knows everything. So you are feel very sad actually. You are taking a lot of pain, and you are doing, lot of efforts to, have a conduct a class for you. First day there is a 21, 22 students are there. Gradually it's come to zero. It's not expected from the students because you are not so busy and you are not seems to be a collector or governor or prime minister. Because no one is forcing you to join in this course. You only has taken chosen this course to take admission, and you are enough matured learners, and you are staying in the home. What work you have? You don't even virtually now you have no work. So after that also you are not getting time to join in the class. Maybe network problem is there. I may agree with that, but it's not like that. In everywhere there is no network because that is very very upset to us. Yesterday there was a class. There is not a single student who joined. We made a group for you. We send a mail to you or sending a message to you. We will make a phone call to you. If after that also you don't know if there is a class or not, then what I'm going to go to your home and I will tell you. Yes, there is a class for you. Are you are enough mature learners here? Don't feel that you don't know anything about this. That means you don't want to study at all. Then why you join in this course? Better not to join. Why are you wasting your money? If you feel that studying with the materials, you can understood everything. You are provided the soft copy to you. After that also you will not study. Suppose June you will exam. Then how will what you will write in the exam? Anyway, I mean it's our duty to conduct a class for you. So you have to conduct the class for you. So now I feel same to tell you. So you have to conduct the online class and it's a very good using technology. You are doing this and that. I don't think it's a meaning at all for us. Because out of so many students, only 0 student will come for the class. Only teacher and me will attend the class. It's not for us. Because teachers knows everything. And I know everything. Because I don't know to study. Out of our busy schedule, we are giving 2 hours for you. It's not that you are conducting the class, I can get extra money for this. Because speaking 2 hours non-stop, it's not a joke. If you cannot listen 2 hours, how somebody can speak 2 hours? Anyway, this is today is the last class. So you are hoping, because I want to tell you, I want a feedback for you, but there is no student. So what I can tell you, give me a feedback. Because I just created a WhatsApp group to disseminate the information to you. If you are after that also you are not getting information, then I am very sorry to say. WhatsApp group तो बनाइथिलु आपण को इन्फॉर्मेशन दवा पे आपण ग्रुप भी देखे पे अपन टाइम नहीं that means आपण माने पढे भी चाहनो anyway it's a part and parcel of the life. I think might be our students are very matured and they are very brilliant students, so they understood everything. They don't want any class, but it's a formality. So today is the last class. Now I request to Dilip sir, go ahead with your class and complete your class. If they are understood or not, that doesn't know also. So after that, you don't feel that we will plan for the any online classes. So I don't know. I mean, what I can tell to you. So by this, I just conclude my things. Now I request Dilip Mishra sir to start his class. Sir.
Thank you, Panigrahi sir.
Yes, continue, sir.
Thank you, Panigrahi sir. Good afternoon to my dear learners. So, we have already discussed 2 blocks of the MRD 103 paper. So we have already discussed that in your CRD paper, 3 papers are there, MRD 102 and MRG 103. So I have assigned to take the class of MRD 103. So in my 3 classes, I have already discussed 2 blocks. So one block, first block, the rural development planning, second block, rural development management, and 6 units of first block and 8 units of second block we have already discussed. And today we will discuss block 3, the last block of MRD 103 paper, that is voluntary action. So in this paper, rural development paper, we will discuss voluntary action. So what is this voluntary action? So we have already discussed rural development. So urban sector and rural sector. So we know that most of the urban people of the country are getting the basic needs, but the rural peoples are not getting their basic need. So they are in poverty, unemployment and inequality states, which leads to starvation death in these countries. So India is a developing country. So in this developing country, to achieve economic growth, so rural development is required. Rural development is must. Without the development of the remote areas, without the development of the rural areas, it is not possible to attain economic development of the country. So in this block 3, we will discuss voluntary action. So in this voluntary action, we will discuss the role of the state to achieve development. What is the role of the state to achieve economic development? Then achieve social justice, develop the disadvantages, concerned with social and economic development of the masses, social reform movement and agencies movement. So these are the voluntary action which we will discuss in this paper. In this block, there are 5 units are there. Number 1 unit, voluntary effort in rural development. In this block 3, there are 5 units. So in these 5 units, the unit 1 is voluntary effort in rural development. Unit 2, voluntary agency administration. Unit 3, developing community-based programs and projects. Number 4, social justice. And number 5, formation and strengthening the voluntary organizations. These 5 units we will discuss today in our block 3 and we will finish our paper. So the students, so when the IGNOU authorities are conveying the students to attend the classes, but few students are attending the class. So, okay, these few students are attending, and who are not attending the class, they are also get the recording of the classes and they can follow the records. So today we'll start unit 1, voluntary effort in rural development. So rural development of the rural section, development of the rural masses is known as rural development. So voluntary effort in rural development. So for rural development, we have already discussed government made different plans. Government makes different plans. IRDP, JRY, ES, so many plans adopted by the government for the rural development. So voluntary effort, that means people of the country should give their effort to make development of the rural sector. So voluntary effort is the integral part of the rural development. Without voluntary effort, it is not possible to attain rural development. So voluntary effort is the effort. So what is voluntary effort? So voluntary effort is the effort of one's own welfare, own participation for the welfare of the people. Then voluntary effort टा कौन? Voluntary effort होची गोटे लोक तार effort दब people तार प्रचेष्टा rural sector develop करने पे effort दो, that means others welfare by the participation of volunteers. तेणु स्वतःस्फूर्त भावे आमे rural development को आगे नवारा आवश्यकता अछि. So there are different characteristics of this voluntary effort. So what are the characteristics? Number 1, people's participation. Number 2, the third sector. So number 1, people's participation. So voluntary effort, that means efforts of the people of the country should be voluntary. स्वेच्छाकृत भावे लोक माने चेष्टा करिया दरकार रूरल डेवलपमेंट बा ग्रामांचल विकास किपरि भाबे हे परिबो तो से कोन कहूची people's participation. So the number one characteristics of rural development of the voluntary effort is people's participation. That means people should participate in the development process of the rural sectors. ग्रामांचल विकास पे लोक मानकर participation लोक माने निजे चेष्टा करिबा दरकार. Number 2, the third sector. Third sector. So what is the third sector? So there are three sectors are there. Number 1, government sector. Number 2, private sector. Number 3, the voluntary organizations. So what is the third sector for rural development? So the third sector for rural development is voluntary organization. So voluntary organization, that means organizations are there voluntarily, they are helping the rural people for their economic development, to improve their standard of living, to provide them food, clothes, shelter. So voluntary food, that means voluntary organizations. So many organizations are there, the organizations which are participating for the economic development of the rural sector of the country. So these two sectors are the characteristics of voluntary effort. Number 1, people's participation. Number 2, third sector. Third sector is nothing but the voluntary organization. The first sector is the government sector, second sector is the private sector, and third sector is the voluntary organization. So the voluntary organization, different types of voluntary organizations has been seen in India. So the types of voluntary organization. So what are the types of voluntary organization? So number 1, private voluntary organization. That means some rich persons or some private persons of our country are interested to provide the basic needs to the poor. That is private voluntary organizations. Ketaka gharoi sanstha, Mukesh Ambani, Anil Ambani, so Reliance company. So these companies are interested for the economic development. So they are adopted different villages for their development. So that is private. Then self-governing, not controlled by the government. Self-governing voluntary organizations. So self-governing voluntary organizations are not controlled by the government. That means government has no role to control over these organizations. Then not for profit. Then some voluntary organizations are there who are not interested for profit. Semane profit पे जमा interested no. सेमानकर मुख्य लक्ष्य, their main aim is to provide food, clothes, shelter, employment opportunity, health facilities, education facilities to the people of the rural masses. Rural masses. ग्रामांचल थिबा अधिकांश लोगों को एजुकेशन, हेल्थ, फूड, clothes, shelter ए सब जोगे द्वारा प्रमुख भूमिका ग्रहण करते हैं. That is not for profit. That means these voluntary organizations are not interested for profit. Rather, they are interested to provide these rural people. Then non-religious. So non-religious voluntary organizations. So and non-political voluntary organizations. So these are different voluntary organizations. These are the types of voluntary organizations. So what are the features of voluntary organization? Features means characteristics. So what are the characteristics of the voluntary organization? So we know that voluntary organization means the organizations which are helpful for the rural development, for the interest of the rural masses, for the improvement of education, for the improvement of technology, for the improvement of health in the country. So there are different features of this voluntary organization. A voluntary organization केते ओडी characteristics अछि. कौन characteristics अछि? Number 1, commitment and dedication for social work. So the number 1 characteristics of the voluntary organization is commitment and dedication for social work. Social work means the persons who are working for the society. The persons who are working for the society. So commitment for social work, that means they are thinking how they will motivate the social work and society will be benefited for them. That means they should help the people of the rural sectors. And dedication, they are dedicated to the rural masses. They are dedicated to the rural poor. They are dedicated to the rural people. That means the rural people's economic development. So number one characteristics of the voluntary organizations are commitment and dedication of social work. That means they are committed, they are dedicated to do the social work. ସେମାନେ ସାମାଜିକ କାମ ବା ସାମାଜିକ ଉନ୍ନତି କରିବା ବା ଦେଶର ଉନ୍ନତି କରିବା ପାଇଁ ସେମାନେ ହେଉଛନ୍ତି ଉତ୍ସର୍ଗୀକୃତ. That means they are dedicated, they are commitment. ସେମାନେ ଚିନ୍ତା କରିଛନ୍ତି, their thought is that to improve, to do the social work. So commitment and dedication for social work. Number two, purely voluntary. Volunteer means, but what do you mean volunteers? Volunteer means who are working selflessly. Selfish, they are not selfish. जो माने स्वार्थ पे न करी अन्य मान पे कार्य करती से मान को हमें volunteers बोली कहता हूँ. So purely volunteer. So these volunteer organizations are purely for the improvement of the rural masses. So they are purely volunteers, not for profit making. They have other business. They are not for profit making. That means they are not interested for profit. ସେମାନେ profit पछरे लाड़ाई तो न ସେମାନେ profit କରିବା को चाहे न थांदी. They are not interested for profit. And granted from government, grant in aid. So when the voluntary organizations are working, massive amount of money, bulk quantity of money is required to massive or bulk quantity of money is required for to manage the voluntary organization. A voluntary organization को manage କରିବା ପାଇଁ ପ୍ରଚୁର ପରିମାଣର ବା ଅତ୍ୟନ୍ତ ବହୁତ ଗୁଡ଼ିଏ ଟଙ୍କାର ଆବଶ୍ୟକତା ଅଛି. ଯଦି ଅତ୍ୟଧିକ ଟଙ୍କାର ଆବଶ୍ୟକତା ଅଛି, ଏ ଟଙ୍କା ଆସିବ କୋଉଠୁ? So they are interested for grant in aid from the government. ସରକାରଙ୍କ ଠାରୁ ସେମାନେ ସାହାଯ୍ୟ ଆଣିବା ପାଇଁ ଚେଷ୍ଟା କରନ୍ତି. Grant in aid from the government. Then registered under the Society of Registration Act. Society of Registration Act. Voluntary organizations who are working for the improvement of the rural poor, their society. These are some societies. Their societies are registered under the government of registration. सरकारଙ୍କର registration नियम अनुसार ସେମାନେ ତା ଭିତରେ ନିଜକୁ registration କରିଛନ୍ତି. They are registered under the government rules and regulations. So for voluntary organizations, there are so many rules and regulations, and they are adopted the rules and regulations. For that they are making registration of their institutions. So these are the voluntary organization. So this voluntary organization, one of the basic principle of the voluntary organization is CAPAT. CAPAT. So what is that CAPAT? CAPAT means CAPART. So CAPAT means Council for Advancement of People's Action and Rural Technology. That means Council for Advancement of People's Action and Rural Technology. That means how rural people, how the remote areas will be technologically sound. We will adopt better technology in the rural sectors. That is what CAPAT. CAPAT means the improvement of people's action for the rural technology. That means rural technology should be developed in the country. So this CAPAT is derived from two organizations by merging of two organizations. Data organization मिसियाला परे एक CAPAT हमारा है कौन? One is CART, another is PADI. So CAPAT is the combination or merging of two organizations. One is CAT, another is PADI. So CAT means CART, Council for Advancement of Rural Technology. Council for Advancement of Rural Technology, another is PADI. So People's Action for Development Plan, that is freedom from hunger. That is the type of CAPAT. One is CAT, another is PADI. So PADI means freedom from hunger. Bhokila ke rahibe nahi. Food for all. That means food security. Everybody should be entered into the food security processes. The government adopt the food security program. जो खाद्य निरापत्ता योजना पर उठे सरकार का योजना अच्छी से खाद्य निरापत्ता योजना भीतर समस्त अनुबंधित है. That means everybody will get food and nobody will reside in hunger. That means केयले भूखिला रहिबे नहीं. समस्त को ପାଇଁ ଖାଦ୍ୟ जोगाड़ करवा होची खाद्य निरापत्ता योजना तेणु freedom from hunger, that means it is the duty, PEDI is the duty, is an organization which will provide food, that means nobody will stay hunger inside the state. कौनसी लोक क्षुधा बा भोकरे गोटे देश रे रहिबे नहीं, that is PEDI. So cupboard is the merging of two, one is cart and PEDI. So what is the feature, what are the features of cupboard? तेणु जोटा में तैयारी करिवा तार किछि characteristics रहे voice system जाकर में उड़े रहता. So features of cupboard. So number one feature: encourage, promote, and assist voluntary action in and implementation of the project. So encourage, promote, and assist voluntary action. So the people. So the duty of the cupboard is to encourage the people who are interested for the voluntary organization, who are interested to do the social work. जो माने लोक मानकर सेवा करिया पे उत्साहित होगाकू चेष्टा करूछंदी सेमानकू एनकरेजमेंट आमे प्रोत्साहन देबा तार काम कपाटर काम होला टू प्रोवाइड encourage to the people who are interested to do the voluntary work. That means voluntary organizations should be encouraged. Promote the voluntary organizations. That means they should make advertisement in such a way that how more people will come to the voluntary organization, how people will work for the poor, how people will provide or do some work to the poor. That is promote the voluntary action and assist the voluntary organization. साहाଯ୍य करें सेମାନଙ୍କୁ प्रोत्साहन देवे voluntary organization को अधिक उन्नत सोपान रे अग्रसर करावे ताला assist the voluntary organization. So the main objective of CAPAT is to provide, is to encourage, promote and assist the voluntary action and implementation of the project. If any project is implemented in the country, even a project is implemented in the country, जदि कौन सी कार्य हवा जाउची, so major role is of the voluntary organizations. जने voluntary organizations मानकर मुख्य भूमिका से रहउची. Then number 2, point for coordination to rural development. Point for coordination, that means CAPAT will coordinate with the voluntary organizations for rural development. तांको rural development पे जो voluntary सब काम करछथि तांको माने कोऑर्डिनेट करिवे अर्थात सहायक रहबे साहाय्य करिवे फॉर इकोनॉमिक डेवलपमेंट. Number 3, identify and funding research and development reports. Identify the funding research. That means it is the duty of the CAPAT from which source they will bring the fund. Go to fund anime so चिंता करे दरकार CAPAT. Then transfer of appropriate technology to government departments. Transfer of appropriate technology. That means where what technology will be adopted. को जगह रे को technology यूज हवा से माने it is the duty and responsibility of CAPAT to adopt. Then act as clearinghouse for information. So CAPAT also gives information regarding the government projects to the poor people, to the rural people. तो ग्रामांचल लोक मान को सरकार कर जो प्रोजेक्ट गुडी बाहरची से प्रोजेक्ट विषय जाने वाला CAPAT रा काम. Act as clearing house. Then to promote, aid and maintain and coordinate project schemes. To promote project schemes, the schemes which are developed in the country. So it is the duty of the CAPAT to promote the projects. Project to promote kariba that duty. Conduct or sponsor training programs. Sponsor or conduct training programs. That means in remote areas or rural areas unskilled laborers are there. अनाकुशली श्रमिक rural area असति. So when unskilled laborers are in rural areas, so it is the duty and responsibility of CAPAT to promote and provide aid to maintain and coordinate the projects. Then to conduct programs and seminars. So programs and seminars. Some programs should be conducted by CAPAT for the rural improvement. What are the works of the, what are the projects of the government? What are the works people will do? How to take training? So these are the duty duties and responsibility of the CAPAT to provide to our regarding the government projects सरकार जो प्रोजेक्ट गुड़िक अच्छी से विषय रे सचेतनता करवा एवं लोक माने किंतु काम पाइबे सरकार किंतु हेड आनिबे सेतबे सेमिनार टू कंडक्ट द सेमिनार इज द ड्यूटी ऑफ CAPAT and to prepare, print and publish periodicals and books. To prepare, print and publish books. Publish books, श्वेत पत्र जो सरकार का जो कार्य गुड़िक अच्छी जो कार्य गुड़िक द्वारा at what work or what projects is made for the rural development or is made for the rural improvement, that project should develop in the country. So these are the work of CAPAT. These are the objectives and feature of CAPAT in a country. Then there are certain activities of CAPAT. Then CAPAT ର କିଛି activities ଅଛି. କ'ଣ activity? What are the activities of CAPAT? So number one, promotion of voluntary action in rural development. So the activity CAPAT is meant or CAPAT is doing certain activities in the state. କେତେ ଗୁଡ଼ିଏ activity ତାର କରୁଛି. କ'ଣ activity କରୁଛି? That is promotion of voluntary action in rural development. That means how rural development will occur. Voluntary action. So volunteers, how volunteers should work and how volunteer actions will be fruitful in the country. That is the first activity of CAPAT. The development of women and children in rural areas. Development of women. That means we know that empowerment of women. नारी मानकु बा महिला मानकु सशक्तिकरण ओडिया को जाय महिला सशक्तिकरण empowerment of the women and children. That means we know that India is a country where importance is given to the male persons, but it is the duty of the voluntary organizations to develop the women of the country. नारी शिक्षा प्रसार एवं सेमानकु निजे उपरे निर्भर करी रोजगार करियर पंथा देखिया voluntary organization काम. So development of the women and children in rural areas. In the rural areas, most of the rural people are poor. So when most of the rural people are poor, how the rural development will occur? So if we give emphasis on children, that means शिशु मानकर विकास. पूरे देश रे शिशु रा विकास. ICDS, Integrated Child Development Scheme. That means for the development of the children, more schemes are adopted by the government. सरकार के द्वारा विभिन्न स्कीम सरकार करछथि. एटा होछि डेवलपमेंट ऑफ वुमेन एंड चाइल्ड. देन disaster management, disaster, drought, flood, famine, earthquake, cyclone, super cyclone. So economic hazards. So economic hazards are known as disasters. That is natural calamities are in the country. So sometimes the natural calamity will arise in the country. So when the natural calamity will arise, it is the responsibility of CAPAT to see how rescue the people from the natural calamity. That means disaster management. That means proper management of the disasters. Marketing development. So markets should be developed in the country. So markets should develop in the country. That means if the production occurs and the producers are unable to sell the production, पूरे देश रे यदि उत्पादन कार्य संपादन हुए एवं जे उत्पादन करछि यदि उत्पादित द्रव्य गुड़िक विक्रय करिबारे से असमर्थ होइबो ताले कोन ताले hence or further production does not occur in the state. So improvement in the market. So market should improve in the country. So these are the activities of the voluntary organization. Then the role of voluntary organization. So what is the role? So we have already discussed characteristics. The characteristics are the role of voluntary organizations. Besides these characteristics, there are other roles of the voluntary organization. That means the government projects which are implemented for the rural development. So it is the lookout of the voluntary organization to carry these projects. सरकार के द्वारा ग्रामांचल विकास पे जो प्रोजेक्ट गुड़िक कार्यक्षम सरकार करछन्ती से प्रोजेक्ट गुड़िक सुचारू रूपे संपादित हेउछि ना नाही বা কোন অত্যাবশ্যক বা কোন আবশ্যকতা আছে বা what are the merit sentiments of the projects, it is the lookout of the voluntary organization. So suppose government yojana, IRDP, we have already discussed IRDP, integrated rural development program. So how the integrated rural development program, it is a program sponsored by government. So when the program is sponsored by the government, so the implementation, so how this program will be properly implemented in the country, that is the lookout of the voluntary organization. So IRDP, then implementation of land ceiling and distribution of surplus land. Implementation of land ceiling. So government fixes that the person is capable to keep such amount of land. जड़े लोक केते परिमाण जमी रखि परिबो एवं ताठु जदि अधिक जमी रखे ताले ताको सरप्लस लैंड पर धरा जिवो. If a person has more lands than the fixation land of the government, it was surplus land. So if a person has surplus land, so how or in which way that surplus land will be distributed among the poor people, that is the lookout of the role of the voluntary organization. Then identification and rehabilitation of bonded laborers. Identification and rehabilitation of the bonded laborers. Bonded labor, जो labor माने those who are poor, those who are taking some loan from the money lenders, and those who are working under the money lenders. Bonded labor, जो माने काम करने को चुक्तिबद्ध bonded labor कहती है. तब से कौन so bonded labor, identification of bonded labor, the laborers who are so it is the duty of the voluntary organization or role of the voluntary organization to identify the bonded laborers and rehabilitate the bonded labor in the country. Then development of SC/ST. So we know that SC, scheduled caste, scheduled tribe people are the most depressed class. So reservation is given to these people. So development of the scheduled caste, scheduled tribe people. So most of the scheduled caste and scheduled tribe people are residing under the remote areas. ग्रामांचल अधिकांश scheduled caste SC and ST people रहुछथि. जदि ग्रामांचल अधिकांश SC ST people रहे, how the development of the SC ST people will occur. So it is the first and foremost duty and responsibility of the government to improve, to develop the SC and ST people. The SC ST people development tara lakshya. Then supply of safe drinking water. So we know that so many diseases will arise due to water problems. आमे जदि खराब पानी पीबा, पानीटा जदि सेफ नहला ताले विभिन्न रोगरे आमे अफेक्ट हवा. So it is the role of the voluntary organization to provide safe drinking water. That means drinking water should be given to the people. The पोखरु कुआरु पानी पी दउतले भल पानी दबा आमनगर कर्तव्य, भल पानी दबा आमनगर ड्यूटी. So safe drinking water should be given. Then afforestation, social forestry, development of alternative agency sources. Afforestation, वनीकरण, गोटे पढ़ते डिफॉरेस्टेशन अटला afforestation. So deforestation माने जंगल नष्ट कर दबा, डिफॉरेस्टेशन. afforestation means जंगल को सृष्टि करबा को हमें कहू afforestation. So it is the duty of the voluntary organization to afforestation of the rural sector. ग्रामांचल रे गछ काटी ग्रामांचल सब नष्ट कर देछथि, जंगल सब नष्ट कर देलेनी. So it is the duty of the voluntary organization to make plantation, afforestation, वनीकरण, वन सृष्टि करबा, जंगल सृष्टि करबा, ए voluntary organization करा काम. So how to create more jungles, that means plantation should improve in the country. अधिक परिमाण रो वृक्षारोपण कर परले देशर उन्नति हे परिबो, देश ओटे डेवलप कंट्री परिबो. So afforestation. Then social forestry, जंगल सृष्टि करबा दरकार. Development of alternative sources. So afforestation, गछ काटले ताकि पनिशमेंट दिया जाए दरकार. So jungles should be or forest should be increased in the country. More forest area should be created in the country, which will give us clean environment. Clean environment. तेणु आम परिवेश प्रदूषण को आम रोकदे पार जंगल सृष्टि हेले अधिका गछ लगे आमर परिवेश ठीक रही पार तेणु प्रमोशन ऑफ स्मॉल facility norms, promotion of small facility norms. That means the persons, marginal farmers, the artisans, आमर जो कमार बढ़े लुहा काम जो माने गाँव मान छोट छोट क्षुद्र काम जो माने उन्नति में चेष्टा करवा दरकार देन प्राइमरी हेल्थ केयर कंट्रोल ऑफ कम्युनिकेबल डिजीज एंड प्रिवेंटिव हेल्थ प्रोग्राम्स तो आउ कौन करेंगे माने रोल ऑफ वॉलंटियरिज्म सो रोल ऑफ वॉलंटियरी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन प्राइमरी हेल्थ केयर प्राथमिक भाव में ग्रामांचल में बसवास लोक मानकर हेल्थ केयर तांकर शरीर जत्न के विषय नहीं परिवे से ऊपर सेमिनार मध्य परिवार आवश्यकता अछि हेल्थ केयर कंट्रोल ऑफ कम्युनिकेबल डिजीज सो इफ एनी डिजीज will arise in the economy यदि कौन सी रोगग्रस्त होला लोगों को गवर्नमेंट को हेल्प कर परिवो से लोगों को भी सहायता कर परिवो दैट इज द लोक दैट शुड बी द लुक आउट ऑफ द पीपल programs for women and children in rural areas programs for women and children that means women improvement नारी शिक्षा महिला सशक्तिकरण डेवलपमेंट होचे women improvement should occur in the country then child development शिशु मानकर विकास यदि शिशु मानकर विकास हे परिबो और देशरा उन्नति हे परिबो फॉर एग्जांपल यू माइट हैव हर्ड द नेम नगड़ा नगड़ा बोलोटे गाछ यू नो वेरी वेल से गाँटा 5 वर्ष तले 7-8 वर्ष तले that village was famous because higher child mortality rate infant mortality rate शिशु मृत्युहार सठी बढ़ी जाता 123 जन शिशु 123 infants were facing death due to malnutrition सुषम खाद्य अभाव जो जोटे कि ए नगड़ा इशुटा पृथ्वीर दृष्टि आकर्षण करता सारा पृथ्वी लोक नगड़ा को देखले काहे कि शिशु मर जाउछथि तार कारण malnutrition so it is the duty of the voluntary organization for the improvement of the children improvement infant mortality should be abolished from the country तबे नगड़ा इस पर सरकार सचेतन हो गले एवं सेठी नै शिशु मान कि उन्नति हेबो से दृष्टि चेष्टा कले माल न्यूट्रिशन सुषम खाद्य दवा दरकार सुषम खाद्यर अभाव जोगु शिशु मृत्यु सटे अधिक आइतरा 123 infants were facing death due to malnutrition so it is the role of the voluntary organization to rectify the malnutrition शिशु मान को सुषम खाद्य दवारे voluntary organization मानकर भूमिका अत्यंत गुरुत्वपूर्ण then literacy program without literacy शिक्षित नहले लोग पाठशाला न पढ़ले देशर इम्प्रूवमेंट हे परिबो नाही so without education it is not possible to improve the country's economic development गोटे देशर अर्थनैतिक क्षेत्र रे उन्नति आशा करबा वृथा यदि शिक्षार विकास हे न परिबो तेणु शिक्षार विकास हे परले गोटे देशर अर्थनीतिर विकास हे परिबो तेणु एजुकेशन लिटरेसी एजुकेशन how all people of the country will get education facility शिक्षा so education for all सेते में गोटे प्रौढ़ शिक्षा कार्यक्रम मध्य सरकार हाथ नैथिले प्रौढ़ शिक्षा कार्यक्रम मध्य करथिले अर्थात गार थिबा बुढ़ा बुढ़ी अर्थात वृद्धा मान को ए पाठ पढ़िबा से गोटे स्लोगान लिखथिले आम गाँ रे जतक बुढ़ी समस्त जे पाठ पढ़ी ए बडा गोटे स्लोगान भी दउथिले से these are the promotion literacy programs that means how people will be literate in the country सब लोग माने केमिति शिक्षित होई परिबे and if people will be literate they will know the pros and cons of the work culture so what work they will do whether that will be beneficial for the nation whether nation will get benefit from that work or not so education or educated people will know if people will not get education they should not know so जान परिबे नाही then promotion of science and technology in rural areas promotion of science and technology in rural areas ग्रामांचल रे साइंस विज्ञान रो नीति में सुदृढ़ करिया दरकार promotion of science and technology in rural areas ତେଣୁ ବିଜ୍ଞାନର ବିକାଶ କରିବା ଦରକାର। ତ ସାଇନ୍ସ ଆଣ୍ଡ ଟେକ୍ନୋଲୋଜି ଡେଭଲପ କଲେ rural area will convert as urban areas, then rural housing. So in rural areas, ଗ୍ରାମାଞ୍ଚଳରେ ଅଧିକାଂଶ ଲୋକର ଘର ଦ୍ୱାର ନାହିଁ, ଯୋଉମାନଙ୍କର ଘର ଦ୍ୱାର ନାହିଁ ଏବଂ ଯୋଉମାନଙ୍କ ଘର ଦ୍ୱାର ଅଛି ମଧ୍ୟ ଝାଟି ମାଟି ବା କାଠ ଫାଟି ଘରେ ପୋତି ତାକୁ ଗୋବର ଲିପି ଅତି କଦର୍ଯ୍ୟ ଘରେ ସେମାନେ ରହିଥାନ୍ତି। ତେଣୁ ସରକାର ସେମାନଙ୍କୁ ଘର ଦେବା ପାଇଁ ବିଭିନ୍ନ ଯୋଜନା ମଧ୍ୟ କରିଛନ୍ତି। ବିଜୁ ପକ୍କା ଯୋଜନା, ପ୍ରାୟ ଇନ୍ଦିରା ଆବାସ ଯୋଜନା। So these are different yojanas implemented in the country to provide housing facilities. So rural housing facilities, ଗ୍ରାମାଞ୍ଚଳର ଅଧିକାଂଶ ଲୋକଙ୍କର ଘର ନାହିଁ ରହିବା ପାଇଁ, ତେଣୁ ସେମାନଙ୍କୁ rural ଗ୍ରାମାଞ୍ଚଳରେ ଘର ତିଆରି କରି ସେମାନଙ୍କୁ ଦେବାର ଆବଶ୍ୟକତା ଅଛି। So it is the duty of the voluntary organizations to bring the debtors who are residing under the poverty line and who is unable to make their houses, ତାଙ୍କର ଘର ତିଆରି କରିବାକୁ ଯେଉଁମାନେ ଅକ୍ଷମ ଅଛନ୍ତି। Environmental concerns. So environment. So environment pollution. Environment pollution, polluted environment will kill the atmosphere, better atmosphere को नष्ट कर देव। तेणु स्वच्छ भारत, आम स्वच्छ भारत कहे, that means pollution free, pollution जो देला आम देखो कंट्रोल करिया। So these are the role of the voluntary organizations for the improvement of the rural development, for the development of the rural people. एटा voluntary organization मानकर रोल rural people मानकर डेवलप करिया। गवर्नमेंट रोल कोन rural people development? What are the role of the government for improving rural development? That is official policy. Government should make some policies which will be officially adopted to promote rural development, to increase rural development. Then number 2, involving non-officials in commissions, study teams and committees. Non-official सरकारଙ୍କର କେତେକ ଅଫିସର୍ସ ରହିବେ ଆଉ ଗାଁର କିଛି ସ୍ୱେଚ୍ଛାସେବୀ ଭଲଣ୍ଟିୟର ଅର୍ଗାନାଇଜେସନର ଲୋକ ରହିବେ for the improvement. ତେଣୁ ସେ କହୁଛି involving non-officials. Number 1, official participation to promote rural development. Then number 2, involving non-officials. Non-official, those who are not doing any government job but their interest is to improve the rural areas or how their village will be developed. सेमानकर गाँ की परि उन्नति अब जो मानकर चिंता अछि सेमानकु ए रूरल डेवलपमेंट सेक्टर रे सेमानकु पार्टिसिपेशन दियाती आवश्यकता अछि। Their participation is required for the improvement of the rural sector. Giving granted to voluntary organization. So giving granted, it is the first and foremost duty of the government also to give grant. Without giving grants to the voluntary organization, the voluntary organization will not be economically sound, and when they are not in economically sound, they will not take proper care of the village people. So for village development, for rural development, granted should be given to the voluntary organization. Voluntary organization मानको grant दबा पदा आवश्यकता अछि। The government duty. Then giving clearance to GIA to the voluntary from foreign donors. Foreign विदेश माने हमारा जो voluntary organization donate करता है। For example, Bill Gates, the richest person of the world. Bill Gates जाको पृथ्वीर सबुठु धनी व्यक्ति कहନ୍ତି। तो से कौन कहछि? So से तार property 50% property for the development of the poor rural people, rural poor. ग्रामांचल गरीब लोक मानकर उन्नति करिया पे से तार 50% प्रॉपर्टी डोनेट कर दे बिल गेट्स डोनेट कर चलछि। तेणु से कहछि फॉरेन डोनर्स फॉर द इंप्रूवमेंट ऑफ द रूरल सेक्टर, द फॉरेन पीपल हु आर इंटरेस्टेड, सो द वॉलंटरी ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस शुड ब्रिंग एड फ्रॉम द फॉरेन सेक्टर्स। फॉरेन सेक्टर रु एड आनिवर आवश्यकता अछि। सो दीज आर द रोल ऑफ द वॉलंटरी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन एंड द गवर्नमेंट्स रोल फॉर प्रमोटिंग रूरल डेवलपमेंट. So this is all about our unit 1. Unit 2, then we will proceed to unit 2. So there are 5 units of this block 3. So unit 2, that is voluntary agency administration. So voluntary agency administration. So we have already discussed voluntary organizations. One who will organize and volunteers are helpful for people's welfare. स्वेच्छाकृत भावे आमे गोटे संगठित होई लोक मानकर ग्रामांचल गरीब लोक मानकर उन्नति करिया पई जो चेष्टा करिवा एटा वॉलंटरी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन को जाय. So there are some agents in the voluntary organizations whose interest is for the improvement of the people. The number 2 padhiva, unit 2 padhiva. So in unit 2 we will discuss the voluntary agency administration, the agents who are interested to do the volunteer work. The volunteer work who are interested. So we will discuss here the indicate. We have to indicate how to start a voluntary agency. So indicate how to start a volunteer agency. So how I will be a volunteer, how I will help the poor people. So indicate how to start the voluntary agencies. Number 2, identify the administrative tasks and activities. Identify the administrative activities. So administration makes many projects for the rural development. So when administration makes many projects for the rural development, so we have to identify what are the activities of the government for rural development, and we have to, the voluntary organizations or the agents of the voluntary organization should try to implement the activities of the voluntary organizations. Number 3, list the steps to be taken at the stage of designing and voluntary agency. List the steps. What are the steps we will move to attain economic development? Ko bata ko star dei ame gati gale government organization the work guda thik hai paribo, government projects will reach to the poor. So different steps of the activities of the government. Otherwise massive corruption will arise in the economy. Corruption arise karibo, rich people will get the benefit of the facilities of the government, but poor people will remain poor as usual. So it is the duty of the voluntary organizations to look out the different steps. That means how this will be properly adopted, how corruption will be abolished. Corruption will be abolished. Then assess agency programs. Assess. So it is the voluntary agents who will assess the agency programs. So what are the programs will be implemented by the agents? These are, so the agents will assess the agency programs. So these are the, we will discuss these things in the voluntary agency programs. So the principal administrative tax to the voluntary organization. Principal administrative tax. Principal administrative tax means mukhya chinta, mukhya karja. So what are the principal work? What are the important works? What are the main works of the voluntary organizations for the improvement of the rural sector? Gramanchalara vikas kariya pai volunteer mane agare kona mukhya karya rahichi. So what are the principal works for the volunteers to implement the government projects, and the administrative to help the administration. So number 1, planning and developing the programs. Planning and developing the programs. So what programs will be implemented by the government? That program, that planning should be implemented. So planning kare darkar, program kare darkar. Without proper planning, we will not achieve rural development. So in this paper, in block 1, unit 1, we have already discussed what is planning. So we know that planning is a blueprint for all economic works. Planning is a panacea to cure all the disease. So planning is a pre-strategy to do the work. Planning got a blueprint. So it is the duty of the voluntary agents, voluntary organization, or the principal work of the voluntary organization to make a plan and develop the programs made by the government. Number 2, acquiring resources. Acquiring resources. So the resources which are in the country. So how to acquire the resource for the economic development. Acquiring the resource and also utilization of the resources. The resources which are in the country, that should be utilized in the country. That means we have discussed yesterday in block 2 that India is a country which is full of natural resources. India is full of natural resources, but scarce in its utilization. That's why India is an underdeveloped country or India is a developing country. So acquiring resources, optimum utilization of resources should be occurred, and it is the duty of the voluntary organization. It is the principal duty of the voluntary organization to look how the resources will be utilized. किपरि संबल गुड़िकर विनियोग हो पारिबो, संबल गुड़िकर कार्यक्षम हो पारिबो, संबल गुड़िकर विनियोग करी संबल अधिकार उत्पादन कर पारिबा. Production should increase. Then number 3, designing organizational structures and processes. Designing organizational structure. So when the organization will work, so the design how the work will be done, how the work will be occur, the design should be prepared by the voluntary organizations. Then developing and maintaining staff capability. Developing and maintaining staff capability. The staffs, the employees who are in the voluntary organization, the staff and employees who are voluntary organization, develop, how they will develop. So proper training. So they will arrange, the voluntary organizations will arrange different seminars, different workshops to give training to the people. Look, training the workshops arrange kariba. Then staff capability. So staff's capacity, the persons, the staffs who are working, how their capacity will increase, how they will do more work. So proper plan should be implemented by the volunteer organizations. Then assessing agency programs. So assess the agency programs. What work will occur by the agents, whether that is beneficial for the poor or not beneficial for the poor, or any corruption occur. So they will assess. Then changing agency programs. If any problem will arise in the programs to implement, so they can change the program and implement new programs for the economic development. So these are the principal administration or principal work of the volunteer agents. Then following activities entail day-to-day practice. So in day-to-day practice, some activities should be occurred by the voluntary organization. What activity karibe? Ame voluntary action, effort of voluntary different step ame alochana kartile. So now we'll discuss the activities of the volunteers to follow the day-to-day. Day-to-day, what are the activities organized by the voluntary organization? The voluntary organization what activity organized gochodi. That means number 1 activity, the voluntary organizations will make plans for the improvement, that is planning. Number 2, information. So regarding the government projects, regarding the government works, they will give certain information to the government regarding the pros and cons of the project. Project gudikara bhala mandha nei semane sarkar ko information debe. Pratham first point ala planning, second point ala information, third goes controlling. They will control the government works. Otherwise, government work will be more corruption will arise in the government work controlling. Then number 4, coordination. So what work will be occurred by the government? Coordination between the people and officers of the government. Otherwise, officers will be monopoly and officers will involve in corruption. Jadi voluntary organization mane officer और सरकार भितरे गोटे सामंजस्य रक्षा करेंगे. Officer mane corrupt रहिए and proper benefits should not will not be given to the remote people, to the rural people. ग्रामांचल लोग माने को proper benefit दिया जाए परिवार नहीं. So coordination should arise in between the people. लोग माने भितरे coordination रहेगा आवश्यकता थी. Then evaluate how the progress of the work occurred, how much the progress of the work occurred. So they will value the progress. Kete kama dala samanta ko evaluation karibe, samantara analysis karibe whether the works are progressing in proper manner or the works are not progressing in proper manner. They will evaluate. Who will evaluate? The voluntary organizations will evaluate. The negotiate between between the people and the officers. So government adopt different schemes, government adopts different projects. So projects will be implemented by the officers and information will be given by the voluntary organizations. So negotiation will arise between the officers and the rural people and the people who are actually poor, who is really poor for his benefit. Voluntary organizations will work. Then representation for the poor people, the voluntary organizations are the representatives. Poor people प्रतिनिधि भाव में voluntary organizations are working. The voluntary organizations are working as the representatives of the poor. The staff pattern, the staffs which are in the voluntary organizations. So the staff pattern is completely prepared by the voluntary organizations. Then supervising when the work occur, supervise तदारख करिबा ठीक रे काम हला ना नहीं, whether the work is done properly or not occurred properly, or corruption occurred or bribe occurred in the work. So supervision occurred by the voluntary organization. A voluntary organization का supervise करिवे. Then allocating space and supplying, that means space quota allocate of the resources. Then ancillary activities, that means participate in meetings. Ancillary activities, that means the voluntary organizations will conduct some meetings, and due to the meetings people will know it is the duty of the voluntary organizations to convey the projects regarding the benefit of the projects. That is ancillary activities, that is participate in meeting. So different meetings will be conducted by the voluntary organizations, and people of the rural areas will participate in the meeting. Then direct service. So direct service. So the voluntary organizations are giving direct service to the beneficiaries. रूरल एरिया रे जो लोक मान रहउछथि सेमाने किपरि सरकारक कार्य गुडिक सीधा सळख नंबर पहुंच परिबो एवं कोनोसी माध्यम दे न पहुंचबो सीधा सळख पहुंच परिबो सति पई voluntary organizations are working direct service to the rural poor. Then budgeting, how much budget is there, how much work will occur with this budget, how work will progress, that is the lookout of the voluntary organizations. So these are the achievement of the voluntary organization. So voluntary organizations will arrange some meetings. किछि मीटिंग voluntary organization को परिवार आवश्यकता अछि. यदि voluntary meeting न करिवे ताले लोक माने जानि परिबेनी regarding the projects of the government. So they do not know regarding the projects of the government. सरकार projects जानिया पे सेमाने किछि मीटिंग करी, that is board meetings or governing body meetings. जोटा कमे board meeting बा governing body meeting बोली कहतो. तो meeting रा कोन पारापन्य रहउछि. What are the parapanya? What are the criteria of the meeting? Number 1, notice. That means to conduct the meeting, a notice is given by the voluntary organization to the rural poor. ग्रामांचल लोक माने गोटे नोटिस दिया दिबा आवश्यकता अछि. Notice will be given before 21 days. तार नोटिस रा नियम होछि 21 दिन पूर्वरु नोटिस टा दिया जबो. The notice is given before 21 days. Then agenda. So on which topic they will discuss. What are the topics? They will discuss. What are the projects? They will discuss. That is agenda. Some agendas are there in the meeting. Then quorum. Quorum means how many people are invited, how many members are invited, and how many members are present. Kete member invited hochandi, kete member present hochandi. That is quorum. If below the quorum will arise 1/3 member, if less than 1/3 member will present in the meeting, so meeting will be cancelled because quorum is not maintained. So quorum means kete loka ati kam rahile amara meeting ta କାର୍ଯ୍ୟକ୍ଷମ habo. So 1/3 members should be present, and to pass the project 2/3 members signature must be accepted. Then quorum or proxy. Proxy means suppose a member is there due to certain work, that member is not able to attend the meeting, so he will send another person by his signature to attend the meeting. जड़े लोक जब मीटिंग अटेंड करने से मेंबर अच्छी मीटिंग में इनफॉरमेशन दिखाई मीटिंग अटेंड करने पाखे कौन कार्य कौन कार्य आज पड़गला से मीटिंग अटेंड कर ना तेणु सी तार प्रॉक्सी पकड़ तार प्रॉक्सी पे आउ जन छाड़ो सो गो एंड अटेंड द मीटिंग ऑन बिहाफ ऑफ मी that is known as proxy. So in this board of meeting proxy is required. My notes. So my notes means what are the agenda? My notes कौन आलोचना हवा what we discuss topics we discuss in the resolution. So after discussing the topics resolution will arise. Resolution माने सब दस्तखत करिवे और resolution है जो a resolution will be implemented that if the work will do in this way ए उपाय रे कामटा कराजिबो तो resolution will be adopted. Resolution कौन रहइबो? So in resolution some points are there. Number 1 formulation of project proposal. The first point of the resolution is formulation of the project proposal. So what project will be formulated? A proposal will be passed in the meeting. That is formulation of project proposal. Then the registration of the voluntary agency. The voluntary organization who will work for the people, whether that is registered or not registered. So registered अनुबंधित संस्था ही कार्य कर परिबो जो संस्था गुडी को अनुबंधित नहंती सेमाने कार्य कर परिबे नाही. Register of the voluntary agencies, mobilizing support. So how the poor, the remote area people, how the people of the remote areas will support the voluntary organizations. So that is mobilizing support, acquiring funds. Most important is finance. So if fund is not available, then voluntary organizations will not properly functioning. For the proper function of the voluntary organization, finance is required. So acquiring funds, so from which source fund will be collected, that is also due to the voluntary organization. Either GIA granted from the government or donation from the foreign people or donation from the rich people or from the industries. So that is look out of the voluntary organizations. Then planning and budgeting. So after meeting, they will do some plans. Planning and budgeting. So for the work, planning is a pre-strategy. Planning is a blueprint. So they will prepare a blueprint in which process the work will be done. वो भावरे कार्य हवा सेटा को the blueprint तैयारी करिबा एमान करा काम. So planning and budgeting. So planning कौन पर plan करिबे. So planning, what are the ways to make the plan? Number 1, ideas. Generation of ideas. So when plans will be implemented, some ideas will be generated. That means the persons or the members who are in the meeting, they will give some ideas. Somebody can say idea the way. Then scouting for project ideas. How the project will be implemented, in which process the project will be done. So ideas will be given by the voluntary organizations. Preliminary screening ideas. Preliminary screening. They will make a screening in the primary stage. That is known as preliminary screening ideas. The ideas are preliminary screening. Screening means plan उड़ी जो दिया है तो बहुत plan बहुत लोग देते हैं तब कार्ड चेक करे जो plan उड़ी करा आवश्यकता अच्छी सही plan उड़ी का implement करा चाहिए. Then survey of facts and figures. Survey how much facts is there. कोटा ठीक वास्तवता को हमें collection करे लोग कैसे survey of facts and figures. Then financial analysis. What is our project? How much we work and what is the budget? What is the financial allocation? आर्थिक allocation केते छि ता मध्ये हमरा चिंता करिवार आवश्यकता छि. Then economic analysis. So financial analysis, economic analysis, ecological analysis. Ecological analysis means environmental analysis. So how the environment will develop, pollution free environment will arise, environment will not be polluted. So financial analysis, economic analysis, ecological analysis, technical analysis. Technical analysis means better technology. So what technology will be adopted? We have to try to adopt better technology for the implication of the project. Then preparation of funding proposal. Preparation of funding proposal. So from which source fund will arise? So preparation will funding proposal. So these are the main planning of the voluntary organizations. Then staff development. How to develop the staff? Staff development. If we not develop the staffs will be unskilled staffs. They will not work properly. Just one जानना चाहिए सन properly काम कर पाएंगे नहीं. जानो staff development. For staff development, so types of staff. So how many staffs are needed? केते लोगों को आवश्यकता अच्छी केते लोग काम करिवे सिरा बुझा दरकार. Recruitment means for taking staffs, recruitment is necessary. परीक्षा करके बच्चे की भला प्लान बा those who are intelligent and will do the better social work. Then performance appraisal. केते कार्यक्षम है पहला performance. Then training. So by doing all these things, training will be given. Training should be given to the staffs that they will do good work. So माने भलो काम करिया पे सान को ट्रेनिंग देजबा दरकार. परफेक्टली काम करिया पे ट्रेनिंग देवारा आवश्यकता अछि. So we have finished unit 2 of block 3. Now we'll progress to unit 3 of block 3. Unit 3. What is unit 3? So developing community based programs and projects. Developing community based projects. How to develop the community? So how to develop the community? So community development, there are some assumptions are there. Assumptions is sarta achi. For the community development, there are some assumptions are there. What are these assumptions? Number one, bottom up planning. Number one assumption is bottom up planning. Bottom up planning means in block 1 we are discussing grassroots level planning. That is block level and village level. Unit 5 and 6, 2 plans are there. One is grassroots planning for block level and another is grassroots planning for village level. So bottom up planning means planning should be implemented from the grassroots level of the people. That means from the bottom people planning will be implemented. That means from the lower strata. Talu सब लोगों का upliftment दे परिवो सदे plan करे दरकार. That is bottom up planning. Then need based. So what is need based level? Gulu जा दरकार. What are the base level for the improvement of the rural poor? For the improvement of the rural poor, what are the base level that should be adopted? So need based. Then local resources. If any project, if any plan will be adopted in the area, so the area, what type or how much resources are there, so emphasis will be given to utilize these resources. A resource will be improvement by emphasis dava avashyakta achi. Then participation of the rural people in this voluntary organization for their improvement. Need identification. So presenting the problems to the community. So presenting the problems of the community. So what problems the community faces? Community ko problem ka face korchi. We have to search that. And after searching the problems, we have to present the problems. Then determining the criteria. What are the criteria for the improvement of the rural masses? What are the criteria for the improvement of the rural poor? How to abolish poor? How to abolish poverty? How to remove unemployment? How to persist equality? That means inequality. How remove in the country? So these are the main ideas of the community development program. Then determining the criteria, choosing problems. We have to choose what problem the community, that region, जो अंचल विकास पे, जो ग्रामांचल विकास पे आमे कार्य करछबा, सरकार कार्य करछबा, सरकार को मार्फत रे वॉलंटियर से कार्य करछंदी से एरिया रे कौन problem अच्छी. That means the voluntary organizations will choose the problems of the rural areas, then choose the problems and how to solve the problems. Problem गुड़िक बाछी problem गुड़िक निराकरण करने ପାଇଁ କିଛି ଯୋଜନା କରିବାର ଆବଶ୍ୟକତା ଅଛି. ତାପରେ ସେ କହୁଛି principles of working with the community. Principles of working on which principle? What are the principles? So what work will occur by anybody? So he has to move certain principles. He has to move certain rules and regulations. So with certain rules and regulations, the work will occur. So what are the principles of working with the community? Be focused. That means the community, for the community, the voluntary organization, which will work, that should be focused on that area. जो एरिया पे काम करुचे से एरिया टाको फोकस करवा दरकार से एरिया रो इम्प्रूवमेंट करवा दरकार सो फॉर द इम्प्रूवमेंट ऑफ दैट रीजन बी फोकस्ड then identify the leaders carefully. Identify the leaders, the area for which the voluntary organizations are working, who are the leaders in that area. So by taking proper plans from the leaders, war should be occurred. Be prepared. Be prepared. That means the voluntary organizations should be prepared to do the work. Then be involved. That means the voluntary organizations should be voluntarily involved in the work. The work which will be implemented by the government, the voluntary organizations be involved in the work. Then build support to do the work. The voluntary organizations should support the work and in proper way that work should be done. Then communicate. So what are the policies? What are the principles? Proper way communicate. Communication should be given or information should be given to the rural people. लोकमान को information देजबा आवश्यकता अच्छी. Then be dynamic. Dynamic means properly. Be dynamic. So properly they should work in the country. So these are the principles of working with the community. Then there are some key factors in working with the community groups. Key factors. These key factors are locating centers of powers. Key factors. What are the factors which are responsible for the improvement of the rural development? So that is locating centers of powers. Locating centers of powers where the powers will be centered. वो जगह रे क्षमता केंद्रित होइछि ताकू देखि से ता थ्रो रे कार्य करबार आवश्यकता अछि. Decision making. So proper decision should be taken. Roles and rules. Roles and rules. That means roles. What are the roles of the voluntary organizations? They will adopt certain rules. The rules are framed by the government. That means voluntary organizations will do the work with these rules and regulations. Then techniques for working with groups. Techniques for working with the groups. We have to adopt different techniques for working. यही लोक मात्रे काम करिया को विभिन्न टेक्निक हमें adopt करियार आवश्यकता अछि. So there are different techniques. What technique अछि? So number one, the reasoning. Reasoning means any statement using rational argument to influence of the others. Reasoning means influence others. That means the work which will be done, which will influence others for the improvement. Then expertise. The experts should be appointed in the voluntary organizations. Experts, that means who can do the work immediately. Then bargaining. So bargaining with the people or people's bargaining power. Suppose an agricultural farmer. Suppose an agricultural farmer producing paddies and the persons who are purchasing the paddies, they are giving less price. So the bargaining power of the producer should increase. Then simple statement, simply a matter of fact statement of one's desire. Matter of fact statement of one's desire. That means a desire of the person who sells the commodity. So these are the techniques for working with the groups. Then we will discuss Unit 4. So Unit 4 is social action. What action will be taken by the society? We'll discuss unit 4 what actions will be taken by the society. Society what action? So development of human society. So the voluntary organizations is meant for the development of the human beings. Some of the human beings of the undeveloped countries, of the developing countries, is residing below the poverty line. So, for the improvement of the BPL groups, below the poverty line groups, that means human society, social action should be taken. That means how the human being will develop in the country. So there are different features of the human development. What are the features? So change in social, economic and political structure. So for human development, we have already discussed in unit 1, block 1, that is PQLI. So what is PQLI? PQLI means physical quality life index. So PQLI is the physical quality life index. That means the physical quality of the human being should increase. So the social, economic and political culture of the person should increase. Social in society, the degree of the person should increase. Economic, financially, the person should be sound, and politically the person should be sound, and political environment should create for the people to include in the social activities. Then political reform. So due to political problems, some corruption will arise. So reformation in political strategy should be adopted. Then social and economic reform. Social, सामाजिक एवं अर्थनीतिक स्तर में पुनर्गठन. Social and economic structure. That means in the society, people should be poor. People should be prestige should be given to the poor people, and economic reforms, artharatika punargatana. That means financially the poor people should be sound. That means they will able to consume sufficient calories of food. They should able to consume sufficient calories of food. For a normal adult, 2,400 calories of food is required. But a normal adult by 2,400 calories खाद्य आवश्यकता है. Economic reform and removal of injustice, even injustice. So in remote areas, in rural sector, the persons who are poor, they are not getting any justice. That means injustice. That is social injustice happened. So removal of injustice, restoration of human rights, human right, Manaviya Adhikar. So what is the right of the human being? He must get the right. Jana lokara human being human right ta କାର୍ଯ୍ୟକ୍ରମ ବା ଦରକାର. Restoration of human rights. Then social action can be directed against global and universal issues. Social action, global and universal issues. Globalization. So we know that in 1991, new economic policy, new economic reform adopted. So the then finance minister, who was the prime minister of India later on, Dr. Manmohan Singh, who was the governor of Reserve Bank. Dr. Manmohan Singh, who was the governor of Reserve Bank, when he was the finance minister of the state in 1990, he adopted the new economic reforms or new economic policy. नूतन आर्थिक नीति हमारे गोटे नीति प्रवर्तन करते कौन करते नीति रे एलपीजी बोला मैं जो कहूँ एलपीजी तो गैस हम से तीनटा कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स तीनटा पॉइंट होचे ए न्यू इकोनॉमिक रिफॉर्म कौन लिबरलाइजेशन ग्लोबलाइजेशन एंड प्राइवेटाइजेशन एलपीजी लिबरलाइजेशन प्राइवेटाइजेशन एंड ग्लोबलाइजेशन एलपीजी देन urbanization so then marketization he adopted different policies liberalization globalization privatization urbanization marketization so these are different policies adopted by the then finance minister Dr. Manmohan Singh who was later on became the prime minister of the country so social justice will be given so social justice will be given to the people by globalization that means पृथ्वी भीतर समस्त ठीक है चल पारे geographical area so in India all the areas are not same so where moderate climate is there where cold climate is there where rain occurs regularly so different climate is there so geographical situation or geographical area is different in different areas so when in different areas the geographical area is completely different so which area is fit for what cultivation, which area is fit for what cultivation. So that should be detected. Then alienation of conflict. Conflict between different people should be eliminated. विभिन्न लोकमान भितर जो conflict सृष्टि होची, conflict दूर करी, so fraternity should be improved in the country. भ्रातृत्व भावना परिप्रकाश हे परले economic development हे परिवो. Then there are some सर्वोदय social movements. Social movement की चीज. So in India, Gandhian philosophy, Mahatma Gandhi. So Mahatma Gandhi father of nation. जातिरा जनक महात्मा गांधी से केतरा हमर करतिले गांधी सोशल एक्शन के तौर से रहितला. सो गांधीयन फिलोसफी, गांधी का फिलोसफी, if we follow the philosophy of Mahatma Gandhi, the father of nation, then we will reach certain conclusions that these are the Sarvodaya social action. Sarvodaya social action. What is Sarvodaya social action? That means the government should go, the people should go different steps. What are the steps? That means prachara, publicity. So what work should be occurred by the government? Publicity should arise. Number 2, parichaya, introduction. What agenda? What are the agenda? What are the works? So introduction should be given. Then adhyayana, survey of study. Adhyayana means survey of study. Then savasa, association. Association, groups will unitedly do the work. Then seva, service. Service to the poor, service to the mankind. गरीब लोगों को सर्विस सेवा कले ईश्वर को सेवा जाओ कुआजे बात तो सेट आउट बितले सर्विस टू द पुअर, सर्विस टू द नेशन, सर्विस टू द गॉड. सो सेवा, देन प्रतिकार, रेजिस्टेंस, देन कंस्ट्रक्शन वर्क, community service, then building the climate change. So these are the Sarvodaya social action. Prachar, Parichaya, Adhyan, Sahavas, Seva, Pratika, construction, builders of the climate change. So these are the ways of the Sarvodaya social action. So in social action, we will discuss different concepts. So Sarvodaya social action में हमें उड़ा सुबह पढ़ले Sarvodaya social action में कौन है पढ़े. Then we will discuss some tactics in social action. Social action, in which way social action will arise? That is fact finding. We have to find the facts. Then publicity, advocacy, and using the formal, non-formal media. Publicity, using the formal and non-formal media. Formal and non-formal. Sangatita Ketra, evam Asangatita Ketra, formal sectors and informal sectors. Educational awareness should be created in the society. Shiksha vikas courage gara avashyakta achi. Mobilizing support of the opinion through establishment of the institutional system. Institutional manakara mobilizing. Jo manakara human right should not be diverted. So using slogans. So what work will occur for that slogans will be implemented. So these are the techniques of the social work and social action of the country. So social action. So the last unit is Unit 5, formation and strengthening of voluntary organization. Formation and strengthening the voluntary organization. So we are discussing the voluntary organizations. We have already discussed how the voluntary organizations are working in the country. So how to form the voluntary organization. Voluntary organization how to strengthen the voluntary organization. So how to form and how to strengthen the voluntary organization. So voluntary organization, for the formation of voluntary organization should be registered first. So in Unit 5, we are discussing formation and strengthening the voluntary organization. How to form the voluntary organization. So formation of the voluntary organization is possible by doing registration. So the persons or the group of persons or any person who is interested to form a voluntary organization, he should have make a registration for the voluntary organization. So formation of voluntary organization can occur. So formation means registration of the voluntary organization. So strengthening the voluntary organization, how to strengthen? Voluntary organization केमिति सशक्त करण कर परिबा. Voluntary organization केमिति strengthen कर परिबा. Establishing and managing. Establish the voluntary organization and manage the voluntary organization properly. So management, we have discussed block 2, rural management, rural development management. Any work we will do proper management will lead to proper work. Proper work will lead to more production. More production will lead to more income. More income, more saving. More saving, more investment. More investment, more capital formation. More capital formation, again more production. That means poverty occurs in a circular manner, and that is Ragnar Daxe propounded that this is vicious circle poverty. So poverty will abolish. That means proper management. The poverty will abolish from the country and strengthening the voluntary organization. Number 2, finances. Okay. Number 2, finances. That means for the strengthening of the voluntary organization, finance is required. Without finance, nothing will happen. That means to help the poor, finance is required. To make education literate all the persons, finance is required. To give food, finance is required. So in each and every work, finance is required. So need for strengthen the organization is number 1, establishing and managing properly. Number 2, finances. Financially, that means on the monetary point of view, that organization should be strong. Financing. Tax reduction. If government will impose more tax, what is tax? So tax is a compulsory contribution by the people to the government. सरकारଙ୍କୁ ଲୋକମାନଙ୍କ ଦ୍ୱାରା ଗୋଟିଏ ବାଧ୍ୟତାମୂଳକ ଦେୟକୁ tax ବୋଲି କୁହାଯାଏ. So tax reduction. If government will impose more tax on the head of the voluntary organization, then voluntary organization will not be financially sound. So for financial sound, tax reduction. Tax reduction means reduction in tax should be occurred. Then Foreign Contribution Regulation Act 1976. Foreign Contribution Regulation. So foreign, we have already discussed foreign donors. There are some foreign donors who are donating for the improvement of the poor, who are donating to the voluntary organizations, who will work for the poor people, who will work for the rural development. So foreign contribution. So what contribution occurred by the foreign sector, that should be regulated by the government. This act, this policy implemented in India in 1976. That is Foreign Contribution and Regulation Act in 1976. वैदेशिक कंट्रीब्यूशन कौन होची एवं ताकू भारत सरकार किपरि भाव रे रेगुलेट करिवे सेति पय गोटिए नियम 1976 मसरे अडॉप्ट करथिले. So they adopt the regulation act in 1976 to strengthen the voluntary organizations in the country, to address problems of functioning. So when the voluntary organizations are functioning, when the voluntary organizations are doing work, so what are the problems the voluntary organizations are facing? The problems should be rectified. A voluntary organization का कार्य कला बेले कौन समस्या बा कौन प्रतिबंधक ताका सम्मुखରେ रहउची सेही गुडा को दूरीभूत करबा होचे लक्ष्य. So to remove the problems which faced by the voluntary organizations. Their voluntary organizations are for certain purposes. A voluntary organization का किसी purpose उद्देश्य रखी गई थी. Without any purpose, the voluntary organizations will never work. The voluntary organization which will be established in the country, which will work for the poor people, which will work for the rural development. So for certain aims and objectives, we have already discussed, these voluntary organizations has been created. ଗୋଟେ କିଛି ନିର୍ଦ୍ଦିଷ୍ଟ ଲକ୍ଷ୍ୟ କିଛି କାର୍ଯ୍ୟ କରିବା ପାଇଁ ଏହି ଭଲଣ୍ଟାରୀ ଅର୍ଗାନାଇଜେସନ ଗୁଡ଼ିକ ତିଆରି ହେଇଛି। So what are the purpose of voluntary organization? The main purpose or the number one purpose of the voluntary organization is to fulfill the targets of the people. The targets of the people. Suppose government will give some target or people has some target. So what are the targets? They should fulfill. कौनसी लक्ष्य यदि अच्छी से लक्ष्य गुड़िक परिपूर्ण करवा ए वॉलंटियर नेशनल काम. So the main purpose of the volunteer, so the main purpose of the voluntary organization is to fulfill the targets of the people or targets of the government. So proper work, how many people will get benefit within the target, means within the time frame. समय अवधि भितर किपरि भाबरे कार्य संपादित हेबा तार लक्ष्य होचे टार्गेट से टार्गेट कह जाय. So within certain times, stipulated times, how the work will finish, that is the target. So to fulfill the targets is the basic purpose of the voluntary organizations. The upliftment of the rural poor, upliftment of the rural poor. So more poor people are in the rural sectors. So when more poor people are in rural sector, how their upliftment will occur? That means how the poverty will abolish from the country, and by abolishing poverty, employment will be given to the people. Upliftment, दारिद्र्य दूरीकरण, सेमानकु जो माने दारिद्र्य सीमा रेखा तले अछंती सेमानकु दारिद्र्य सीमा रेखा उपरकु आनी सेमानकु धनी करी देश को डेवलप करिवारे भूमिका होचे वॉलंटियर ऑर्गेनाइजेशन कर. That means the people who are residing under the poverty line, who are residing below the poverty line, their upliftment, that means they should brought above the poverty line. That means they should able to get employment opportunity, and it is the duty of the government to provide employment opportunity. For that, government adopts different projects. But ES Yojana, one is EAS. I have yesterday discussed in my previous class. I have discussed EAS. So EAS, Employment Assurance Scheme. It is the duty of the government to provide, to assure employment to the rural people, to assure employment to the remote people. The norm. So what are the norm? Norm is there. That means it is the duty of the government to provide 100 days work to the laborers. At least 100 days, 365 days, including 365 days. If a person will work for 100 days, so we can say he is employed. So upliftment of the rural poor. So these are the two purposes. Fulfill the target, upliftment of the poor. That means poverty should reduce. Poverty should abolish from the country. Then registration of trust. So the basic ingredients of a valid trust. So what are the basic ingredients? So the author of the settler of the trust. So trust, that means everybody, government should trust and विश्वास करना दरकार. Government should trust to the voluntary organizations, and people should trust. The voluntary organizations are working as the middleman. मध्यस्थ रूप में पालन करते सरकार, government implements, provides funds, government adopts different schemes, people are getting schemes. So for the implementation of government money, proper allocation of government resources, voluntary organizations are working. So trust should be achieved by the voluntary organizations from the government and from the people. Both should be trust, and voluntary organization is a trustee. And the beneficiaries, the persons who are getting benefits, some beneficiaries are there. Beneficiaries means who are getting benefit. जो माने benefit पाइबे, for whom the projects are implemented. जो मानक पाई project, जो मानक पाई project की कार्यक्रम, they are known as beneficiaries. Those who are getting benefit from the government projects, maybe IRD, maybe MGNRE, maybe JRY, maybe yes, maybe in other projects. Those who are getting benefits from the government works, from the government projects, they are known as beneficiaries. So the beneficiaries should be registered. Then the object of trust objectives. So the main objective is for the improvement of the rural poor. Then some charitable purposes. Charitable. So trust, the trust who which are sanctioning money, the charitable trust. So these are relief of poverty, दारिद्र्यରୁ दूरीकरण କରାଯାଇପାରିବ। So we know that government provides ration card to the poor people. For a greater purpose, government provides ration card. That means the poor people who are not getting food due to ration card, they are getting some food. And Ahar Yojana implemented by the Odisha government, or Odisha government implemented the Ahar Yojana. So when the Ahar Yojana implemented, by giving 5 rupees, they are getting sufficient food. So relief of poverty. These are the projects. These are the projects for the rural poor, the persons who are poor. So removal of poor. So relief from poverty. दारिद्र्यରୁ मुक्ति मिलिया ପାଇଁ सरकार योजना ओडिया କରିଛନ୍ତି, but there are corruption, implement not occur properly. So relief. So one of the charitable purpose of the voluntary organization is to relief of poverty, दारिद्र्य निराकरण योजना. Education. So the voluntary organizations are working in educational sectors. That means how to provide education for all. समस्तଙ୍କ ପାଇଁ ଶିକ୍ଷାର ବିକାଶ. All will read. ସମସ୍ତେ ପଢିବେ. Female education and old बुढ़ी वृद्ध जो एजुकेशन TLC program, total literacy campaign. That means how to make literate of the people. The literate of the people means illiterate persons do not know the pros and cons of the society, and literate person, he knows what are the steps I will do the work, I will get more benefit, and the government will get benefit, and due to all, government will reach at a developed stage, and India will achieve economic growth by achieving its economic development. Education. Then medical relief. So medical relief, swasthya sampada. In India, people are poor. रोग बेरा कहले आमे मेडिसिन पाई पाउने, तण मेडिसिन पे हमर गवर्नमेंट मेडिसिन मागणा दवा पे व्यवस्था करछि। तण से कहउछि आयुष्मान योजना is a योजना implemented by the government to provide medicines to the people. तण से कहउछि education, medical relief, general public utility. So medical facility and health. We know that these are the two important facilities which improve in the country. Rural development will occur. So rural development will persist by improving education and improving health. So health, swasthya, education, शिक्षा एवं स्वास्थ्य विकास गोटे देशर अर्थनीति क्षेत्र विकास पे सहायक. So when education and health will improve in the country, the country's economic development will occur. So in the rural areas, education is not developed, health facilities is not developed. If in the rural areas a person is facing some disease, he will face the death. It is difficult for that person immediately to bring him to the hospital. So education, so शिक्षा स्वास्थ्य विकास. So for rural development, education health should be developed in a country. So this is block 3. So we have already discussed the MRD 103 course, that is rural development and planning. So MRD 103, there are 3 blocks. So in your CRD course, the course CRD certificate of rural development, 3 papers are there. One is MRD 101, another is MRD 102, and third one is MRD 103. So I have assigned MRD 103. So in MRD 103, 3 blocks are there. Block 1, block 2, and block 3. So block 1, rural planning, block 2, rural management, and block 3, voluntary activities. 3 block अछि. First block is rural planning. We have already discussed planning, types of planning and planning processes. So how planning is required, why planning is required, how planning makes economic development, how planning makes rural development. In block 1, rural planning we have discussed in 6 units. So in block 1, there are 6 units which we have already discussed. Block 2, rural management. How after implement the plans, after fixing the plans, after prepare the plans, how to implement, how to manage the country, how to manage the projects, how to manage the projects implemented by the government in proper way for rural development. So second, planning rural management. Block 2, rural management. In the rural management, we have discussed 8 units. Among the 2 units, block level planning and village level planning. That is grassroots planning in the rural sector and grassroots planning in urban sectors. So 8 units are in block 2. We have already discussed. And block 3, voluntary action. First is rural planning. Second is rural management. Paper is rural development. First is rural development planning. Second is rural development management. Third is rural development for voluntary action. So when the management is properly occur or not occurring in the state, the volunteers are taking participation, are taking certain roles to implement the plans in the country. So the third block 3 has 5 units. So block 1, rural planning, 6 units. Block 2, rural management, 8 units. Block 3, voluntary action, 5 units are there. So we have already discussed these 5 units. Are you understand? Okay. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Now your CRD course is over.
Sir,
Anything?
voluntary जो ଗୋଟେ organization ପାଇଁ କୋଉଠି register କରିବାକୁ ପଡିବ?
Government package. So voluntary organization, when the voluntary organization will implemented in the country, देशरे voluntary organization बा volunteer माने ए हेल्प करो जो voluntary अछि से माने गवर्नमेंट पाखरे रजिस्टर करो तो गवर्नमेंट किए से गवर्नमेंट रो प्रतिनिधि ब्लॉक लेवल ब्लॉक रो वीडियो सेटो परमाने की वीडियो पाखरे रजिस्टर करियो पड़ियो वीडियो पठेबे गवर्नमेंट प्लानिंग नेशन डिपार्टमेंट जानो ब्लॉक लेवल and it will go through the panchayat बाट दिगेटा जीवो बुझियला
ଆଜ୍ଞା sir.
ओके तेणु आमर 5 मिनिट आउ किछि जदि जेतले जार डाउट रहइबो देखिबाकू ए रेकॉर्डिंग पानी राय सर पठे दोछथि तेणु रेकॉर्डिंग जो पानी राय सर पठे ताकू पढले मध्ये जते पिला छथि मु जोटा पढे देली those are not attending the classes they can see the recording तेणु साथ रे काम करछथि मु मोर हृदयरु पानी राय सर को आहुर मध्ये धन्यवाद दोछि that a lot of thanks to Dr. Santosh Kumar Panigrai who organized and arranged such online classes for the betterment of the for better performance of the students. Panigrai sir, a lot of thanks to you sir.
Sir. I mean, now I request to learners, do you have any suggestion, any feedback?
Learner feedback. Yes, I welcome this.
Sir, class ଟା ମାନେ ସବୁ ଭଲରେ ହିଁ ଗଲା ଯେହେତୁ ମାନେ ଅସୁବିଧା ଥିଲା କି ଏଇ କରୋନା ପାଇଁ ଯାହା ହେଲେ ବି ଅନଲାଇନ ରେ ହେଲେ ବି ସରିଗଲା ତ ବହୁତ ବଢିଆ ଲାଗିଲା ଆଉ
Thank you
କାଲି
very
ଆପଣ
much.
ମାନେ କି ଆସିଲେନି
ଆଜ୍ଞା ସାର୍
କାଲି କି ଆସିଲେନି
ଗତକାଲି ସାର୍ ମୁଁ ଲିଙ୍କ ତ ପାଇଲିନି ଟୋଟାଲି
ଲିଙ୍କ ଟା ପଠେଇଥିଲ
सर ମୁଁ ବି ଲିଙ୍କ ପାଇଲିନି
ମୋ ମେଲ ରେ ଆସି ନଥିଲା ସାର୍ ମୁଁ ବହୁତ ଥର କନେକ୍ଟ କରିବା ପାଇଁ ଚେଷ୍ଟା କଲି ଆଉ
सर
ଗ୍ରୁପ ରେ
WhatsApp ରେ
ବି
ମେସେଜ କରାଇଥିଲା
Oh, due to weather condition. But I
Okay.
managed the problem. But the
Okay,
movie-
chalo, thank you once again. Thank you very much. Now you will, I mean, you will think for future in this kind of program. Okay. So I
Okay,
thanks
sir.
to Dilip sir with this short notice. He
Welcome,
accepted
sir.
our invitation. So I thank you all to joining and make success of this online classes. Thank you very much. Now we'll wind up the class. Okay.
Sir,
Okay.
थैंक यू सर
Wish you a better future.
sir ଏ ଯୋଉ
And wish you a good result. Yes.
Wait. Sir, कौन पचार
ଏ ଯୋଉ ପ୍ରୋଗ୍ରାମ ଟାଇଟଲ ସାର୍ ଆସାଇନମେଣ୍ଟ ର ଯୋଉ ମାନେ ମେନ୍ ପେଜ ତ ପ୍ରୋଗ୍ରାମ ଟାଇଟଲ ଟା କଣ ଲେଖା ହବ ସାର୍
Program
MRD
title.
103
MRD
कोर्स कोड होची तमरो कोर्स कोड होची CRD ओके
आज्ञा
तमरो
आज्ञा
असाइनमेंट कोड होची MRD 103
आज्ञा आउ कोर्स
MRD
टाइटल सर
101 102 103 तीनटा पेपर
कोर्स कोर्स टाइटल
कोर्स कोड होची CRD टाइटल किछ लिखिया दरकार नहीं
सर एटी लेखा है जी तो कोर्स टाइटल बोली की
कोर्स कोड लिखिबो एंड आपनकर प्रोग्राम कोड लिखिबो
आज्ञा प्रोग्राम टाइटल सर
प्रोग्राम टाइटल आपनकर अपना सर्टिफिकेट रूरल डेवलपमेंट
आज्ञा सेशन सेशन सर जनवरी रु जुलाई
हां जनवरी जून
जून आज्ञा सर
एमती नो
ओके
सेशन
सर
लिखा जाए जनवरी
आज्ञा
सेशन इज जनवरी
ओके
सर से ऑनलाइन रे जो देजंती सर कौन से लिंक रे सेडी सर सबमिट करिवो
हां
आज्ञा सर
ठीक है
ओके थैंक यू
Best of luck.
थैंक यू
Best
सर
future, dear learners. Wish you the best of luck. I finish the course. Thank you for your cooperation.
सर आपण
थैंक यू वेरी
कहउतले
मच
सर
सर